time
Look
this
at
morning.
that. Woohoo! All right. Well, welcome to episode 39 of the Georgie and Patty Show. I am Georgie,
I am Patty.
and we are here on this fun Tuesday morning. And on Tuesdays is where we talk about I read it so you don't have to. And I think Patty has a special edition today since yesterday was a holiday here in British Columbia. So we're going to kind of do a little mixture of some motivation and some book reviews. And this is a bit of a tribute to Barbara Sher as well. So it's going to be a very exciting and interesting, awesome show today. Our quote of the day is, of course, we're staying with the Barbara Sher theme. So isolation is a dream killer. I thought that was really fitting actually when Patty mentioned it this morning too, since we're all in a bit of isolation right now. So, made me think curious as to how are we handling this, and are you noticing that not being necessarily out in the world, um, are you finding it challenging? Are you finding your dreams dying a little bit, or are you able to make those connections with other people still, which I think is totally possible, and almost even take this time to really look at what are my dreams, what do I want my life to be, or my business to be, and how can I make these things happen, and who might I need to help me along the way? What am I good at? What am I missing? Who can join me on the path? Do I need a cheerleader? Do I need some support? It's such a great time to kind of reflect and reevaluate what is it that I really want, and how do I get myself moving towards doing that. So that's my take on that. And with that, I am going to turn this over to my co-host.
And that introduction is just so absolutely on track with what I am, with what we're about to do today.
Excellent.
There we go. I've got the green circle of awesomeness around my slide deck.
Woo!
Yay! All right. So, as Georgie mentioned, today our topic is We Read It So You Don't Have to. And today it's all about Barbara Sher, your permission slip, our reading or not reading permission slip. Read the book or not. Take the advice or not. Always permission to ignore us.
Yeah.
So, as Georgie mentioned, this is a tribute to Barbara Sher in some ways. I feel a little bit like I lost a friend because I knew Barbara Sher. I met her. We did a retreat with Barbara in 2009, where we all stayed at this lovely little bed and breakfast place for 5 days or a week or something like that. So yeah, I got to hang out in the kitchen and make breakfast with her, kind of a thing. So she's not just an author to me; she's actually a real person. And um, I originally encountered her books around about the same time I discovered Stephen Covey. So it was very, very early in that late 90s kind of time, where I first ran into one of her books, and it just I felt so much like she was talking to me. For those of you who are on the island of misfit toys, you're Barbara Sher's people, and Barbara Sher was one of us. Totally weird, totally unique, totally different, and she was just such a firm believer in that. And as I put together our presentation for this morning, I was looking over some of the stuff I had learned from Barbara Sher, and in particular, the book that I'm going to partially share with you this morning, which happened to be like a real book that was just on my bookshelf. uh, I learned so much from her, and so much of my outlook on life, and so much of how I approach life and what I've done, and in my work and in my dealings with other people, have so much to do with what I learned from Barbara Sher. And if you're not familiar with her, I hope to share some stuff that gets you excited about picking up one or many of her books, because she is totally freaking awesome. So the book I want to talk about today is this one, Live the Life You Love in 10 Easy Step-by-Step Lessons. Uh, and this is a quote from the book. This is I don't know. I get shivers every time I read this kind of stuff, because it's completely in alignment with what Georgie and I do in our work and in who we are as people. But this idea that everyone has unique gifts and talents, what you love is what you're gifted at. To be completely happy, to live a completely fulfilled life, you have to do what you love. Um, this is kind of a running theme through everything that Barbara Sher talks about, is this idea, well, that we are unique and that we have these gifts, and that in some ways it's a little bit like looking for the joy, looking for the energy. Um, One of the things that, well, I'm going to talk about it in a minute. I don't know, I'm just going to share three things to get us started, because these three things are so Barbara, like just so much. Her idea that you are one of a kind. Barbara is the opposite of putting people into kind of a cookie cutter kind of a system. She recognizes that humans are individuals, that we're all unique and different, and we all have different things that drive us. We have different motivations. We have different things that we like. We have different gifts. Everyone is one of a kind, and that if um, if we want to do what we love, we need to figure out what kind we are. We need to figure out who we are and what works for us. And uh, although she is prescriptive in giving people things to do, and we'll talk about that in a moment, um, she is never adamant that her way is the only way. It's find a way that works for you. Um, and I think that that's part of the reason why her following is full of us kind of quirky people, is that we found a place and somebody to support and encourage us that wasn't asking us to conform or to be someone that we are not, and in fact talking about the exact opposite of fully becoming who we are. So you're one of a kind. This one, you will never be happy unless you are using your gifts. And this particular book talks a lot about that, about what are your gifts, about figuring it out, um, about going back into your childhood and looking at what made you happy. What did you do with your time? What did you do as a child? What did you do as an adolescent? And not just the actual activity, but what did that activity do for you? What did it mean to you? Barbara's really big on looking at what um, the core thing is that you want to get out of an experience, because it's not always um, the experience itself. Often it's something underlying it. So while you may have enjoyed finger painting as a child, you might not enjoy finger painting now, but there was something about finger painting that was joyful to you. And it might be about creativity. It might be about getting messy. It might be about self-expression. It might be about the texture and feeling of having stuff on your hands. There was something about it. And it's about what is that little thing that drives you. When you get to the core of that, often um, you can do the things that you love without having to make a big deal out of it in a way. um, One of her things is like, you have to use your gifts, and your gifts are the things that you enjoy doing. And if you enjoy doing it, you're clearly talented at it. She'll even say you're a genius at it because you love it. And that's all that counts, is that you love it and that you use it. And she will often say, you don't have to turn it into a business. You don't have to make a living out of it. It doesn't have to be your job. You just have to do it. Um, if you love making music, you don't have to become a musician. You just have to play the piano. It's like you just have to add it to your life. So it's not necessarily about turning your whole life or your business or your career into something, doing what you love. She talks about having a good enough job, a job that doesn't take away all of your energy and creative kind of uh, abilities. It doesn't like drain you entirely, but it pays the bills and gives you money, time, and freedom to pursue the stuff that you love. That's great. Uh, it's very much about finding what works, uh, and it's kind of the opposite of the hustle, 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 change your life, do everything, work hard at it kind of a thing. In some way, she's like, look, let's find the joyful and easy way to do this. So whatever it is that you love to do, you need to do it. You need to use your gifts. Um, and if you don't use your, it's almost like she says it's like an imperative that you use your gift, not just because it makes you happy, but because of what it does for other people, whether you're helping them directly or just living your life by example. Um, it's if you were given gifts, it's your job to use them. You're expected to use them. So it's not a nice to have. It's kind of a must have. Uh, you don't have to change yourself to change your life. Quite possibly the favorite thing that she says. She doesn't believe in personal improvement. She says there's no reason you don't have to become a different person. You don't have to lose the weight. You don't have to do the makeover. You don't have to change your personality. You don't have to change your bad habits. You don't have to be positive. You don't have to change yourself in order to change your life. You are fine exactly the way you are. She talks about you can live a life you love even if you're in a lousy mood, even if you don't feel like it, even if you gorge yourself on chocolate chip cookies or whatever. It's like you don't have to change yourself. You don't have to become different in order to change your life and in order to live the life that you love. So she's not big on self-improvement kind of stuff. She's more about finding out what works for you, and doing what works. So with that, I want to share something from Barbara's book. It's called 10 Easy Step-by-Step Lessons. And this is one of the things that I think sets Barbara's books apart um, from other authors of this kind of genre, is that she structures the book with assignments. It's not about just reading uh, the book. It's not about, I could share all of the 10 easy steps, but I wouldn't give the essence of what the book is about. What she does instead is she takes you through a series of exercises. In a way, it's kind of like a coaching program. Her books are written like a coaching program. It gives you explicit assignments to do to help you figure out who you are, what you want, what drives you. And she has some really interesting kinds of ways of going about this. And I'm going to share with you one of the exercises from the book so that you get a sense of it, but also because it's super useful because we missed Motivation Monday because of the holiday. And this is a good question for you, is to figure out what motivates you. And there's a couple of exercises in the book. Another one is to kind of look back on your past and find out, take a look at where you were successful and what did you have in place that allowed you to be successful, can give you some clues uh, to what motivates you. But the other way to figure out what motivates you and to kind of drown out the voices of the experts who tell you how to motivate yourself is to create a report card for popular motivation techniques. So here's the thing, and I'm going to invite you to play along. So if you have a notepad and a pen, this would be a good time to pull it out. You can do it in your head if you want, but it's kind of fun to do it in writing. And I'm going to share with you some possibilities for motivational techniques, and your job with these is to grade them. And here's the thing. We are all motivated differently. And some of these motivational techniques may seem negative or wrong, but that's not what the goal is here. here on the rating system. The goal is to be honest with yourself about what motivates you, what works for you. And regardless of what it is, if you look at that and you go, yeah, that works for me, whether it's like, yes, that totally works for me, it's like, oh shit, that works for me. It doesn't matter. What matters is it works for you, because when you know what works for you, you can just do more of it. And so there's no negativity attached with any of these particular things. That's super important to keep in mind, because like this is the accepting yourself as you are, not turning yourself into something else. So some of these are going to sound really good, and they're going to sound like things that should motivate you, but they don't really. In that case, you give them an F. And she says, don't even give them an F, give them an F minus. Like, give them, like, just flunk them solidly. It's like, if it doesn't work for you, it fails. It is bad for you, it fails, forget it, it's never going to work. And if you get an A, if you find things in here that are an A for you in motivation, figure out how to get that into your life so that you have the motivation that works for you. No kind of negative connotations attached to it, or positive, right? So an A or an F, you just say, if it kind of sort of works sometime, you can give it a C, but really we're looking for the things that are an A. So I'm going to share some popular motivation techniques so you can give yourself a score, A or F, depending on whether or not it works for you. Shaming. This is the take a naked picture of yourself and tack it to the refrigerator because this will have you stick to your diet. Uh, this kind of a thing. If you do something to make yourself feel bad about where you are now and that motivates you to make changes, then that gets an A. If, as she says, it drives you to the cupboard to eat cookies, then it gets an F. No judgment. If it works for you, it works for you. Awesome. Scolding. This is that kind of, why did you do that? You were so stupid. Maybe you should do things differently. Giving yourself a hard time for not doing stuff. Either doing that yourself or setting somebody up to give you a hard time. If this is something that motivates you, if having somebody kind of bark at you and tell you that you're no good or whatever motivates you, um, to do better and to do different, then you can give yourself an A on that. If this is the kind of thing that you reject, that does not work for you. Remember, the test here is whether or not it works for you, not whether or not you approve of it or is something that you want to admit, because you don't have to admit this to anybody except yourself. But if this is what works for you, then this is what works for you. Praise, kind of the opposite of this, is having people in your life say, wow, you did a great job, or giving yourself that kind of feedback. Wow, way to go, that was awesome. Um, does that motivate you to do stuff if you feel like you're going to be praised for it, or if you're praised during it? Does praise cause you to get stuff done and move forward and feel inspired? A if it does, F if it does not. Competition. A lot of people thrive on competition, wanting to be better than somebody else. One of the examples that she gave in the book was the idea of doing better than somebody you don't like, doing better than your enemy, uh, uh, being part of a competition, part of a race. Does looking at what other people are doing inspire you to work harder? Does it motivate you to be in competition, or does it demotivate you? Do you look at all those other people out there hustling and moving, and you go, I can't live up to that. That doesn't work for me. So, A if this drives you, F if it doesn't. Getting help from your buddies. If you've got something to do, does it help to bring a bunch of people together and do it together? Does it help for you to have a little work party or something like that? If you had to do a project in your house, would it help to invite people over to work on it with you, or to work on their own projects with you? Does having some company keep you motivated? And if having some companionship on the journey, if you think back and you go, wow, yeah, that worked really well. Had everyone over and got this big job done. Oh, that might be an A for you. And if this isn't your thing, might be an F. Fear. And um, fear of consequences. Some of this might be some accountability sort of kind of a situation. If you don't do the thing, terrible things will happen. That's what I love about Barbara Sher. She's like, don't scoff at this one. This one gets an A for me. It's like, if I wasn't afraid of some stuff, I would never get around to doing it. So does fear motivate you? Um, fear of disappointing someone, fear of showing up unprepared. There's lots of ways fear can show up. Does is that something that motivates you or doesn't motivate you? For some people, fear just kind of stops them in their tracks and they don't get anything done. So where are you with fear? Affirmations. Do you have a list of affirmations that you read into the mirror every day or that you write in a journal? Does this help you? Does it motivate you? I know someone that does affirmations every morning. It motivates them like nothing else. Um, do affirmations work for you or not? Have you tried them? Um, A if they work, F if they don't. Some people feel silly doing them and it doesn't do anything for them. It's totally okay, whether it works or whether it doesn't. Pain. Do you have to turn up the volume of the pain? Do you have to look at how bad things are? Do you have to hit rock bottom? Do you have to play out worst case scenarios or catastrophes in your mind? Does that motivate you um, to move forward and to do something different? For some people, this is what drives them. Are you one of those people? Do you have to see how truly bad something is before you take action to change it? Does the pain of your current situation move you into a different place? A if it does, F if it doesn't. Revenge. Sometimes the idea of getting revenge on somebody. There was a quote about this, something about the best revenge is a life well lived or something like that. But this is kind of like that, doing better than your enemies. It's like, I'll show you kind of kind of a thing. Is there um, an ex or a relative or something like that you'd really like to show up and get revenge on? If that motivates you, that gets an A. Spirituality, does believing in the universe, does praying, is there something like that motivates you? One of the examples she gave in the book was the idea of reincarnation, believing in reincarnation. It's like, I'm motivated to get it right so I don't have to come back. It's motivating for some people. So is there um, something about spirituality that motivates you? Dares. I double dog dare you to do it. Does that get you motivated? Does it help to have somebody dare you to do something? I dare you to succeed in this business. Taking a class. Does taking a class motivate you? Does it help to have some structure, to have some assignments to hand in? Are you motivated to learn in that kind of a structured way? Does giving yourself a reward motivate you? This is a very popular motivation technique. Is give myself a reward if I do this thing. Does it work for you? If it works for you, awesome. If it doesn't, cross it off the list. Starting small. Does it help? Do you feel more motivated if you figure out what the baby steps are first? Breaking it down into little pieces, doing a teeny tiny thing. Does that motivate you or not? Deadlines. Do deadlines motivate you? Do self-imposed deadlines motivate you? Or do deadlines with other people motivate you? Does it help to know when something is due? Does it help you get moving on it? Or is there something else? It's like, if I haven't named the thing that motivates you, add it to the list. Is there something else that motivates you? Is it, getting in touch with your why, or having a sense of purpose? Is that what motivates you? If you look at Dan Pink's stuff, autonomy, purpose, mastery, do those things motivate you? There's lots of things that could potentially motivate you. The trick is to find out what drives you, um, to kind of customize the plan. And then when you know the things that motivate you, it doesn't have to be a lot. If you have one thing on the list that motivates you, it's how do you incorporate more of that into your life so that you can achieve the things that you set out to do. So that's our little motivation um, exercise. And Barbara's books are filled with these kinds of exercises. This was one exercise in one chapter. Like, there was, I think, 3 different exercises in this chapter on motivation. This was one way to do it. She had other ways as well. She's got simple things that you can do on your own. She's got ideas for convening a group of people together to have an idea party, to help people brainstorm how they can get what they want, how to overcome obstacles that they have. It's kind of a structured way to have a mastermind kind of a group. She's got that listed in the book as well. But lots of helpful exercises to help you do that inner reflection in your life to figure out what is it that you really want, and what is the best way for you to go out and get it. So I'll wrap this up with another quote from her book here, is that you're the expert on what you need. So listen to yourself. And with that, do we have comments?
So good. So good. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we could pull these out for the motivation, like Motivation Mondays. We could do different Barbara Sher exercises. It would be so cool.
I was just thinking about that. It's and I resist doing the exercises. I'm like that with all books. It's like, I want to read the information. I don't want to do the exercise, which is why I chose to share the exercise today rather than just go over the 10 steps, right? It's because if you enjoy this kind of thing, this kind of guided tour, inner spelunking or whatever, her books are awesome for that, because they're just full of exercises. And in fact, when I did her Write Speak course, which is why I actually have a book, is because that was the purpose of the retreat. It only took me like 9 years after doing that to finally write a book. But one of her recommendations is to have a lot of exercises in the book, to look at it more like a course rather than just a book. Like, if you want to write a book or create something that really helps people, it's got to give them stuff to do.
Yeah, I love that, because I think for me, when I was looking, I'm like, oh yeah, like the take a class thing is definitely motivating. But like, even exercises, I do like exercises because I can go through them and like, oh, then reflect on them, and then it leads into to movement for me. So, which I think is funny, because as soon as I'm like, well, let's do more of these things on. I like them. Let's do more. Let's do more. So cool.
Yeah, I found it really cool, because I'm looking through that and I'm like, okay, because one of the other exercises that she gave was this idea of reflecting back, like, on big goals that you've achieved. It's like, what made it possible for you to do the hard work required to do that? And it might be learning something, it might be completing a project. It could be something as like raising a child, or finishing school. It's kind of like, what made that work? And when I looked at that, I'm like, okay, what really worked for me is having kind of a structured classroom kind of a situation with assignments, and ideally where I had somebody to give me feedback and perspective. It's like um, I found that really motivating, really helpful. Like when I look at Toastmasters, for example, is a really good example of that. It's a structured program. It's like, here's what you do, and you do it, and then you get feedback from somebody. Um, so you get some help improving, and it has that nice container. And when I got my systems analyst diploma, it was like I had to show up every day in class for 9 months. I had planned to write my MCSE exams for years, like absolutely years. I knew you could do it. You could take courses online. I could get all the information. Never did it until I signed up for that program. And then I went to class every day. I sat there through the boring lectures. I did the work. I studied. I passed the exams. It was just like, it's just that worked for me. It worked for me to have that kind of structure. I'm not that great when I'm left to my own devices. And it was just like, I'm reading this. I'm like, oh man, that's really useful information. It's good to know.
It's so nice to be able to go back through, like I said, going back through books that you've read, especially if it's been a while since you've read them, and go, oh yeah. Because often I think we might be at a different place now too, where we get to look back and go, oh, right, I forgot about that thing. That really is the thing that gets me in motion and gets me motivated to do things and take action. Oh yeah, why? And I love it too, because yeah, why not just add more of that?
Yeah,
Like it's this whole thing of trying to fight our personality and who we are, because I love what she says, right? We are all uniquely one of a kind,
yeah,
and so often I think we're trying to push ourselves into all of these other boxes that's someone else's box, instead of like, well, actually what works for me. It actually really works if I shame myself to not eat the chips. Doesn't work for me, but you know, but great if it does. Like, why do we have to go, oh, that's not the way to do it, that's not the healthy, like, really?
yeah,
If it
exactly.
works and it gets you the result you want, great. That's really all that matters.
It's so true, right? Like there's an upside in all of this, and these are ideas. Like when you look at these common motivational kind of techniques and that, the reason they're common, the reason people talk about them is because they work for some people. And that's the thing. And it's like she says, you can look for all of this stuff about, at the time of writing, 1990s, right? She's like, it's all about, that titans of industry and stuff like that, like men that created big corporations and military um, kind of establishments. It's like that works great for this subsection of the population, but if you're not like that, that stuff doesn't work for you. Um, so you have to find out what does, and be okay with it. It reminds me
Exactly.
a little bit of Gretchen Rubin's thing about if you're an obliger and you need accountability. It's like, don't bother trying to change yourself into an upholder. Just go get accountability. It's like the shortcut. Finding out what drives you is the shortcut.
Exactly. And I think it's really learning to trust yourself. You know you better than anybody knows you. And so often we want to, just take all this information from outside sources, and then, oh, I need to do that, and then somehow we wrong ourselves because we're not like that. And
Yeah,
it's like, no, actually that just doesn't work for me.
yeah,
Great. Then, do what works. Make it easier. Like, way easier. Yeah, boil down self-awareness. Exactly. And I think that's a word we use a lot, self-awareness, but really actually becoming aware of yourself and who you are without any external information. Like when you sit with yourself, who are you and what do you want and what works really for you, is it's such a big, not an easy thing, and such an important thing.
yeah,
One of my motivators is someone telling me I can't do something. That's right.
exactly.
Watch me. Yeah, committing to others is a huge motivator. Publicly announcing I'm doing something. My weekly calls with my accountability buddy help a lot.
See, that
Yeah.
publicly announcing that you're going to do something. I've tried that so many times, does nothing for me.
Yeah.
It's just like does nothing for me, right? And it's just like, but for other people, it works absolutely great. Same as someone's telling you that you can't do something. It's like, yeah, doesn't work for me. But it doesn't matter. And in fact, that's one of the things that kind of um, drives me nuts about um, the world that we live in and the kind of work that Georgie and I do, is when people are um, want to know what I did, and it's like I'm like it's completely irrelevant. Like what I did doesn't matter, right? Like it's just like that's what worked for me. It it's not necessarily going to work for somebody else. It's true in motivation, but it's true in a lot of other things too. True in marketing. There's a zillion different ways to market your business. Um, the trick is to find the one that you like, find the one that you'll do. Find something that fits
Exactly.
for you.
Exactly. It's so important.
Yeah.
And I think that these are the things that often get us stuck a lot too, is because we're so busy, comparing ourselves to other people, wanting to be like somebody else, wanting to follow someone else's thing to the letter. And we get almost resistance from ourselves because it's those things that don't really work for us, and it's like, oh, okay, let me take that information in. Let me see that works, that works, that works. And then knowing the difference between I'm resisting it because I'm scared or I'm resisting it because it just doesn't work for me. Or and then how do I take this and make it work for me? Maybe what would be the way that I see it? I really believe when we're able to tap into that kind of knowingness of ourselves, we know, and then it's doing more of that without the concern of what someone else is going to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the
She has a whole chapter in the book, by the way, on resistance.
mm, nice.
Yeah, it's that's another one of her topics. But it's really what's really kind of cool is Barbara Sher has um, her own approach to resistance, which is
Nice.
different
Just
than Stephen Pressfield. And I like Stephen Pressfield, and you will see his book, The War of Art, at some point on here. Um, but Stephen Pressfield has that kind of work through it approach to resistance, this whole thing about turning pro, about showing up and doing the work every day kind of thing. And Barbara's like totally against it, right? And at one point she got into like a little argument with him on his blog or something like that. She went in and she's like, I totally disagree with you about how to manage resistance, right? Which is really, and she's got some interesting techniques in the book about managing resistance, including breaking things down into the smallest possible unit, like um, taking something so small is kind of like, and she says when other people talk about breaking something down into small chunks, they don't mean small chunks. Like they're like, oh, you want to exercise for 45 minutes, well, you should start off exercising for 15. And Barbara's like, no, you should start by stretching one arm.
yeah.
It's like 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
It's like you want to write a book, the smallest possible unit might be picking up your manuscript and holding it for a few seconds. It's like it has to be something that has zero resistance to it. She says it does nothing for the overall project, but it does everything for you and overcoming resistance and building habits and stuff like that.
Mm.
It even goes as far as to say sometimes you won't even do the smallest possible unit. And she says, in that case, if the resistance is so strong, you should just agree with it. And you should just say, I am refusing to do this thing today. She's not. So that's her way of facing resistance. Is kind of outwitting it and going along with it versus taking it head on as like this huge opposition or something like that. So um, very
Well, I think that's kind of like what James Clear says too in Atomic Habits, right? It's like you have to break the thing down so small where literally, yeah, it's like a minute or 30 seconds or, you know, something so little, and then you build on that. But if you try to, like I say, these chunks that are just too big, like the thing has to be almost so small, it seems ridiculous to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Almost. It's like, oh, yeah, 30 seconds. Okay. Woohoo, exercises are done for the day. Yay, I did it. But,
The
you
thing,
know,
the thing is too, right? This is about living the life you love. This is not about self-improvement. It's not about doing things you don't want to do. And this is kind of what's fascinating when we talk about resistance, is that this is resistance to things you really want to do, right? This is not resistance to things you think you should do. This is
yeah.
resistance to things that you enjoy doing and that you love to do. That's, and isn't that interesting? That resistance will come up for those things.
Yes. Totally. Totally. Like that. Yeah. Facing resistance is a very interesting concept. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That isn't that true? Like why are we resistant to the things we do actually like to do?
Yeah,
So interesting.
it is
Let's see
interesting.
if
And
we have
it's,
any
you
comment.
know, it's
This
like,
so yeah. Makes you think. Things that make you go, hmm.
yeah, no kidding. Like even like I found myself even just, reading through some of the exercises. It's like, um, kind of going back in time, and it's like, what did you enjoy as a child, right? Like making a list of the things that you used to do as a child, and then it's like kind of a prompt to do them now, and I'm like, I'm full on resistance to that, right?
Right.
It's like I used to draw a lot when I was a kid, like a lot, and I like drawing. I've taken drawing courses, and it's like, and I resist drawing. It's like, how interesting is that?
Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, and then it's looking at what's underneath that. Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, some comments here. This COVID situation is really making me look at my life. Now that I'm off the treadmill, I know I never want to be that busy again. I'm going to say no to a lot more invites to events and commitments in the future. I also know that I have to make changes in my business so I don't have to do hard physical work because my back can't handle it anymore. Pain is a motivator for me to shift my focus. Great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that is one of the great things that's kind of come out of this sort of slowing down thing is really having the opportunity to take inventory of, oh, what is the life that I love? What does that look like? And where am I sacrificing that with the things I had been doing? And how can I make some adjustments moving forward? So good.
Yeah.
Um, I love walking, but I resisted at 5 a.m. Yeah, the COVID retreat. That's right. Yeah. I like it at 5 a.m. if it's light outside and the birds are singing. I
Mm.
resist it if it's dark because I'm afraid of the bears.
That seems like a survival instinct instead of resistance.
Yeah. Well, and now the bears are out, right? There was a bear on the trail yesterday in the river. So I'm like, oh yeah, here they are. Okay. Now I must be more aware. And then how do I overcome that fear of the odds of me getting eaten by a bear are pretty slim, even though they're out right now. So I just need to be more aware. But I do feel some resistance to the woods at the moment, which typically happens every year around this time because I'm scared to die
Yeah,
by eating by a bear.
yeah, I'm scared to get eaten by a bear too.
You know?
I'm willing to bet that most of the people on this call are scared to be eaten by a
Yeah,
bear.
yeah. So I got to work through that.
We had a wolf a block away from us.
Wow.
Yeah, apparently the wolf has been coming into town and eating people's cats.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's not good.
Yeah. No. I take my dog with me for walks, but he's very small, so he would just be like a little snack, which I don't really want him getting eaten either.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, yeah. Maybe I'll just be like Facebook living my whole walks. Why that would make me feel better, I don't know, but
You feel like you had company with you.
I feel like I have company. I feel like I have a group. Yeah, exactly. I'll be talking more. I don't know.
Is this the day Georgie gets eaten by a bear?
Let's see. Exactly. Exactly. Ah! Call 911. Help. So funny. I love Barbara's attitude to accept the fact that listen to ourselves. Yes, I think it's, I think that is such a big, 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 big piece. Um, yeah, and it sounds so simple, and I think it's really, really not that easy to do, for sure. But I think if we can learn to get into that space, what a difference it would make. And I think it's probably one of the biggest keys to being able to live the life you love is to be able to listen to yourself and do what works for you and be able to put all the outside noise just aside and be like, I'm comfortable, I'm confident with everything that's happening here. I reserve the right to change my mind, and right now this is what it is and this is what I say, and I happily go along doing my thing based on what works for me. I'll share what I know and take what works, ditch what doesn't, and allow everybody the space to do that. That space of being accepting of where people are and what works for them and all of those kinds of things. I think would make such a big difference.
I think too, like really, it's an act of courage because living the life that you love based on your preferences and how you want to do it often means not fitting in.
Exactly.
It can be very, very, very difficult to live the life you love and to fit in.
Yes.
When you have a hobby that people make fun of, or you choose a career path that people don't approve of, or you drop out of the materialistic rat race and uh, refuse to, um, you know, go along with what everyone else is doing, right? Like it could take a lot of guts to do it.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's one of those things that sounds maybe a little bit easier. It sounds like it should be easier than it is.
Exactly. Exactly. But there can be a lot of pushback
Yeah.
to
Because,
that.
for a lot of people, and she has another book called Refuse to Choose, which is about scanners. And Barbara herself is a scanner. And scanners have multiple interests, and scanners get bored easily. Scanners will have multiple careers. Scanners will drop something and pick something else up, right? That, living as a scanner and embracing that as who you are, that raises eyebrows.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean you've got 25 years invested in IT and now you're going to do something different, right? Like it's um it's that kind of stuff. You're always, you never settle down, you never commit to anything. You're always hopping around, right? It's
Right.
yeah, I mean, she got a whole book on that, right? You lose interest fast. You're always quitting things. You never stick anything out. I remember my grandmother telling me that when I was a kid.
Yes.
You always quit stuff. And then Barbara's like, that's just a sign you're a scanner. Scanners get their fill. They've had it. Like they've taken what they wanted out of it. And there are so many things to do that they're just on to the next. Why would you
Yeah.
persist with something when the joy is gone?
And why can't we just accept that instead of trying to dive into there must be some psychological trauma underneath that you're holding on to that you just won't commit. So what does that mean? What if it was simply, I'm just a scanner, I like to do different things?
Yeah.
Like, what if it was really just that instead of trying to make a big, there has to be a reason that you're doing that. Once we can figure out that and fix it, then you'll settle down and be stable.
Exactly.
Like, so crazy. Like, okay.
What if I
Oh,
don't
so
want
funny.
to settle down and be
What if I
stable?
don't want to? What if I like to move around? Yeah, exactly. Let's see. I found that having more time to walk and meditate has given me a lot more time to listen to myself. Absolutely. I think that's why I love being in nature every single day, and definitely through meditation. It's that stillness and that quiet. And it really does, I think, give you access to just your who you are. So good. For me, that really, really, really works. And I know when I'm consistent with it, um, I my actual self confidence increases when I'm really consistent and I'm really tuned into to me. Then my confidence level for being able to just show up as me is a lot higher, a lot higher. Um, Not fitting in could make us feel lonely, but you are happy though, and others may follow you later. Like meditation or yoga, people thought meditation didn't work for a long time. Yeah, and I think it's finding the people who believe what you believe and who fit with what you believe, because there are those people, right? Often we're in these groups of people that just they don't believe what we believe, so we do feel lonely, and even stepping outside of those groups and then going to find those people can be scary, and that takes some courage too. And I think that's why the more we are able to speak from that space of who we are, those people who are looking, they find us too, and we start to create these groups of people. Like, I love how this kind of theme of misfits is sort of coming up a lot within our group. um, and even like when we had Mike on the show, it's like Mike doesn't look like he'd be a misfit. So often we're putting labels on people and we're thinking there's no way, and yet we're not even aware that, oh wow, they feel like this and this was happening for them. So, and I think this, we find these people by being able to stand up and say who we really are, and operating from that space of our true self. And it does take some courage and some guts, because it can be scary. um, and then what happens though is, I think those people, they're like, yes, we start to connect and build these communities of people, um, where that's okay, where we're really providing the space for people to show up as they are.
Exactly.
um, Been a scanner as long as I can remember. Now you just have a name.
Helps to have a name for it.
Yeah.
It helps to know that you're not the only one.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of interesting too for me. Also um, rereading Barbara's book and just seeing how um, we talk about this hero's journey thing, right? About talking about your background and how you got to where you are and all of that. And um, she begins the book by talking about herself and about her own journey, but she does it in a way of making connection versus proclaiming how great she is. And I think that there's a lot to be learned. Looking at how she structured her book and how she, introduces herself as one of us, right? Who talked about, none of these motivational techniques or anything working for her. It's like, this is not my experience. This didn't help. As much as I tried to make myself into a different person or whatever, it just didn't work for me. I didn't see myself in any of this stuff, right? And about her work with her clients and about herself, looking for what works for individuals and basing um, her teaching and her methodology on herself kind of
Mm.
is a big piece of it, both herself and her clients, and just this recognition that we're all different. But kind of like she too is a scanner. She too battles resistance. She too is not motivated in a normal way. She's a little bit quirky, doing things a little bit differently. You look at it, like, she was one of the first life coaches, and it wasn't even a term when she started. yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, this is all life coaching stuff. I learned some of this stuff in coaching class. I learned some of this stuff in counseling class. It's like, it's, it's really, really kind of cool.
It's really cool. It's really cool. I love this. Georgie and Patty's comfy, cozy, quirky office. Yep, pretty much.
Absolutely. You
It
can
is.
belong, you don't have to fit in.
That's right. Exactly. Abso-freaking-lutely. I know I love that line that you said. I think we're getting closer to like taglines here. Things just sort of happen. And that's where they come from.
I like to believe that there's more of us than we know. I think a lot of people are so socialized to fitting in, um, and
Yeah.
they don't really allow themselves to think or to explore, to look inside. I think it terrifies some people to do that. Um, but I'm thinking that there's a lot more of us than we may be aware of.
I would agree. Yeah. This comment. I'm sure all the pioneers were considered abnormal.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely. It's
Absolutely.
so true. So true, you know. Yeah. And then suddenly it's like, oh no, that's just the way it is now. But yeah, if you look back to when they first started, it's like they're crazy. Like, what
Yeah.
are they talking about? Those early adopters is definitely, definitely. And I agree. I think there's more of us than we think, and it's just giving the space to be like, yeah, and truly have the space where um, you belong and you do not have to fit in. How you show up is completely and totally okay. You know, I think there's some lip service to that, and I'm not sure how many spaces there are where really it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm going to show up in my pajamas and slippers today. Okay. You know, or whatever it
Oh, I
is,
can tell you
you
from
know, with a,
experience that does not get a good reaction in most spaces.
yeah.
It was totally okay at Barbara's retreat, though. I was not the
Yeah.
only one.
That's awesome. So good. So good, you know? And I think it is coming, it basically comes down to that true acceptance level of a human being, not based on anything that's really physical about them, but it's really accepting that essence of like magic and greatness and wonder that every single human being on the planet has, because I really don't believe there are any mistakes. We are all here for an absolute reason. Like, it's, we weren't like, oh, that one was an accident, oops, can't wait till that one's gone. And it doesn't work like that, you know. So how can we have more acceptance of really that inner people of human, instead of just judging from the outside all the time about, you know, either what they're wearing, what they look like, what their opinions, their beliefs are, you know. And I think if it's something we don't understand, or even we might disagree with, I think getting into that space of curiosity and wanting to know more, you know, oh, you know, tell me more. How did you come to that opinion? Interesting. How is that working for you? But really from a place of curiosity, not from a place of wanting to wrong them or convince them of your way of being, but actually, like I say, emptying the cup and showing up. I don't know here, so tell me something new. I know I've been really aware of noticing when is my cup full and the lid tight and really tight, and being like, nope, and like, ooh, let me just loosen that up a little bit, just throw some of that water out. You know, because it's a much more fun place to be when I can show up literally curious and open, from really wanting to know and not with some kind of agenda or wanting to push my own crap on somebody. So good.
I'm just thinking about that even in relationship to that, what motivates you, um, report card thing that we did today, right? Like, are you coming into this with some preconceived notions about what are okay ways to be motivated and which ways aren't, and maybe even coming in closed-minded to some of the options, going, oh, that would
Yeah,
never work for me, but you haven't actually tried it.
exactly.
You know, I admit I have never actually put a naked picture of myself on the refrigerator to stop myself from snacking. It's
Yeah.
possible it might work.
Yeah, I've never put a naked picture. I have put the bikini picture up there, but not the naked picture. Provided I know no one's coming in my house. That's coming down real quick. I once heard the thing too about if you want to really watch what you eat, just eat naked in front of a mirror. And I'm like, that might work, but I've never really tried it. So yeah. Anything goes. That's right. Well, we are 10:30.
We are 10:30.
Yeah.
And we will be back tomorrow. And
we will be back tomorrow.
You are going to talk about more on the same kind of topic, aren't you?
More on the same kind of topic tomorrow. Exactly. Getting through that mental stuff that's stopping us from moving forward. And I think we kind of touched on some of it today, so we'll touch on that tomorrow. One final comment from our chat. If Barbara Sher was watching your show, she would have a huge smile on her face. Who knows? Maybe she is. Anyway, you're both have done a great show related to her wisdom and teachings. Also, I am reminded of an exercise where she has people rate their happiness levels. The Georgie and Patty show always raises my happiness levels. Thank you to the tribute to Barbara Sher today and actually in every show.
Aw, thank you.
You're welcome. That. Thanks for that. Very nice comments. Thank you. All right. Have a fantastic day. We will be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel, right?
Awesome.
All right. See you tomorrow.